What if I told you there's one thing you could say that would make anyone, yes, anyone, stop and listen? Not because it's manipulative or flashy, but because it's rooted in something timeless, something real. This isn't about tricks or cheesy pickup lines. This is about power, the kind of power that comes from within, the kind of power the Stoics mastered, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to use it. Let's get one thing straight. This isn't about winning someone over. It's not about control or games. It's about understanding something deeper, something most people miss entirely. Stoicism isn't just a philosophy, it's a way of life. It's about mastering your emotions, understanding your values, and living with intention. And when you do that, something incredible happens. People notice. They're drawn to you. Not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're unshakable. Today we're diving into how Stoicism can transform the way you connect with others, especially in relationships. But fair warning, this isn't a quick fix. This is about building something real. Here's the problem. Most of us approach relationships, whether it's dating, friendships, or even family, from a place of neediness. We want to be liked, we want to be accepted, we want to feel valued. And because of that, we end up saying things we don't mean, doing things we're not proud of, and losing ourselves in the process. Sound familiar? It's like we're constantly chasing something outside of ourselves, hoping it'll fill the void inside. But here's the truth. No one can give you what you're not willing to give yourself. And that's where Stoicism comes in. The Stoics knew that the key to real connection isn't about changing others. It's about changing yourself. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need approval, but earns respect naturally. So, how do you do that? Let's break it down. 1. The power of silence. Let's start with something counterintuitive. The power of saying nothing. The Stoics called this taciturnity, the art of knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, was a master of this. He believed that silence wasn't just the absence of words, it was a tool for clarity and strength. There's a story about Marcus Aurelius that perfectly illustrates this. One day, a senator approached him, furious about a decision Marcus had made. The senator ranted and raved, hurling insults and accusations. But Marcus didn't interrupt. He didn't defend himself. He just stood there, calm and composed, listening. When the senator finally ran out of steam, Marcus simply said, "Thank you for sharing your perspective." And then he walked away. That silence was more powerful than any argument. It showed that Marcus wasn't rattled. He wasn't desperate to prove himself. He was secure in his decisions and didn't need validation. And that's the kind of power silence can give you. So, how can you use this in your own life? Next time someone tries to provoke you or pull you into an argument, don't take the bait. Pause, breathe, let them talk. Your silence will speak volumes. It shows that you're in control, not just of the situation, but of yourself. Iftas 2, the art of self-control. Now, let's talk about self-control. The Stoics called this apatheia, not being ruled by your emotions. It's not about suppressing your feelings, it's about not letting them control you. Epictetus, another famous Stoic, was born a slave. He had every reason to be angry, bitter, and resentful. But instead, he chose to focus on what he could control, his own mind. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." There's a story about Epictetus that really drives this home. One day, a man insulted him in public. Instead of lashing out or defending himself, Epictetus simply smiled and said, "If I knew everything about you, I'd probably agree with you." That response disarmed the man completely. It showed that Epictetus wasn't defined by someone else's opinion of him. He was secure in who he was. So, how can you practice this? Next time someone says something that upsets you, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Is this person's opinion more important than my peace of mind? Remember, you can't control what others say or do, but you can control how you respond. 3. The value of authenticity. Next up, authenticity. The Stoics believed that living in alignment with your values, what they called virtue, was the key to a good life. And that means being true to yourself, no matter what. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, was a master of this. Despite living in a time of corruption and excess, he stayed true to his principles. He said, "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." There's a story about Seneca that really highlights this. One day, a wealthy nobleman offered him a bribe to compromise his values. Seneca refused, even though it meant losing out on a huge opportunity. When asked why, he simply said, "I'd rather be poor in wealth than poor in character." That kind of authenticity is magnetic. People can sense when you're being real, and they respect it. So, how can you be more authentic? Start by getting clear on your values. What matters most to you? What kind of person do you want to be? Once you know that, let those values guide your actions. Don't pretend to be someone you're not just to impress others. Be unapologetically yourself. 4. The strength of independence. Now, let's talk about independence. The Stoics believed in self-sufficiency, finding fulfillment within yourself rather than relying on others. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, is a great example of this. He was a wealthy merchant who lost everything in a shipwreck, but instead of giving up, he turned to philosophy and built a new life. He said, "The goal of life is living in agreement with nature." What does that mean? It means accepting what you can't control and focusing on what you can. It means finding happiness within yourself, rather than depending on external things or people. So, how can you cultivate this kind of independence? Start by spending time alone. Get comfortable with your own company. Learn to enjoy your own thoughts. When you're not desperate for someone else's approval, you become more confident, more grounded, and more attractive. 5. The one thing you can say. Finally, let's talk about the one thing you can say that will make anyone stop and listen. It's not a pickup line or a clever phrase. It's not about the words at all. It's about the mindset behind them. The Stoics believed that the most powerful thing you can say is rooted in truth and clarity. It's not about manipulating someone. It's about expressing yourself honestly and confidently. Here's an example. Imagine you're on a date, and the conversation turns to something you're passionate about. Instead of trying to impress them with facts or stories, you simply say, "This is something I really care about. It's a big part of who I am." That's it. No fluff, no exaggeration. Just honesty. And because it's coming from a place of authenticity and confidence, it's incredibly powerful. So, how can you practice this? Start by getting clear on what matters to you. What are your passions, your values, your goals? Once you know that, practice expressing them simply and confidently. Don't overthink it. Just speak your truth. 6. The power of perspective. Let's talk about perspective. The Stoics believed that how we see the world shapes how we experience it. They called this prohairesis, the ability to choose our own judgments and reactions. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Here's a story to illustrate this. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. One is furious, honking the horn, and cursing at everyone around them. The other is calm, listening to music, and using the time to reflect. Same situation, but completely different experiences. Why? Because of their perspective. The Stoics teach us to step back and ask, is this situation within my control? If not, how can I change my perspective to find peace? So, how can you apply this? Next time you're faced with a frustrating situation, pause and ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Can I see this differently? Shifting your perspective can turn a stressful moment into an opportunity for growth. 7. The importance of gratitude. Now, let's talk about gratitude. The Stoics believe that appreciating what you have is the key to contentment. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." There's a powerful exercise the Stoics practiced called negative visualization. It's about imagining losing the things you take for granted. Your health, your relationships, your freedom. This isn't meant to make you sad, it's meant to make you appreciate what you have. For example, take a moment to think about your ability to see. Imagine what life would be like without it. Suddenly, the fact that you can watch this video, read a book, or see the faces of your loved ones becomes a gift. So, how can you practice gratitude? Start small. Every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. It could be as simple as a good meal, a kind word, or a moment of peace. Over time, this practice will shift your mindset and help you find joy in the present moment. 8. The courage to let go. Finally, let's talk about letting go. The Stoics understood that clinging to things outside our control only leads to suffering. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." There's a story about a man who carried a heavy rock everywhere he went. People asked him why, and he said, "It's mine, and I can't let it go." One day he tripped and fell, and the rock crushed him. The Stoics would say that's what happens when we hold on to things we can't control. It only weighs us down. So, what can you let go of? Maybe it's the need for approval, the fear of failure, or the desire to control everything around you. When you release these burdens, you free yourself to live fully and authentically. Here's a practical tip. Make a list of things you're holding on to that are outside your control. Then, one by one, practice letting them go. It's not easy, but it's liberating. Here's the thing. It's not about memorizing a line or following a script. It's about embodying a mindset. When you truly understand and live by Stoic principles, you don't need to try to impress anyone. You don't need to try to be interesting or likable. It happens naturally, because when you're grounded in your values, when you're in control of your emotions, and when you're authentic to who you are, people can't help but notice. And that's the real secret. So, what's the takeaway? Stoicism isn't just a philosophy. It's a tool for building confidence, for creating real connections, and for living a life that's true to who you are. It's not about changing others. It's about changing yourself. And when you do that, everything else falls into place. Remember, the power isn't in what you say, it's in who you are. If you're ready to dive deeper into Stoicism and unlock your full potential, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep this journey going.